My name is Andrew Campbell. Thank you for joining. As I said, I'm Andrew Campbell. I'm the Head of Communications and Events at the Irish Centre for Diversity. We recently held the National Diversity and Inclusion Awards to recognise and celebrate the valuable work being done to progress diversity and inclusion in Ireland. This webinar series has been devised to share the insights and experiences from the sponsor, the winner, and the finalists, so that any learnings can be applied to your organisation or help with entering the next award cycle. Today's session focuses on the category Advancing Disability Equality Award, and this award is kindly sponsored by Aon, who have supported the award and this category since the very beginning, so something very dear to their values. Aon's a leading global professional services firm providing a broad range of risk, retirement, and health solutions. In case Orla, who I'll introduce later, doesn't mention it, Aon was one of the very first organisations in Ireland to be accredited with Investors in Diversity Gold, which is the top tier of Ireland's premier diversity and inclusion accreditation and framework for progress. Excuse me. Before I hand over to the award sponsor, Orla, and we hear from some of the finalists and end with the award sponsor, wrapping up in about an hour, I just wanted to point out that we do have ISL interpretation today, and that's provided by Vanessa Cunningham. Thank you very much, who you should be able to see in your screen. We also have closed captions available in the Teams controls, and I believe Kira, busy working behind the scenes, will drop something in the chat to help you access those if you need them. The session's being recorded and will be available on the Irish Centre for Diversity website, which is irishcentrefordiversity.ie or simply icfd.ie. Everyone is muted except the panel. Please share the comments in any comments in the chat function. We'd love to hear which organisations you're joining us from. There isn't time for Q&As, but you may get answers by connecting with any of the panelists on LinkedIn and then posing your questions to them directly. So without further ado, I'm very pleased to introduce our host for today's session, Orla McGinley, who's the Senior HR Partner at Aon, who'll shine a light on their organization's equity, equality, diversity and inclusion, or their EDI, advances and lead what is sure to be an enlightening conversation. Over to you, Orla.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Yes, I'm actually here in Donegal. The sun has just come out, so that's where the light is now shining in on me. So it's thank you so much for everyone for joining the call today. And yes, this is our third time to sponsor this wonderful award. And as Andrew said, we retained our gold accreditation for a third time as well. We are definitely very proud of that. And it really does reflect just the incredible work that all our colleagues at Aon and our leaders do to create an inclusive culture where our colleagues and employees feel valued and supported. We've actually done a lot in many areas across D&I over the past number of years. I myself am particularly passionate about one, and that's actually our menopause strategy. So we rolled out a policy here in Ireland, and now that is actually our global policy for over 60,000 employees. In Ireland, we have 10 colleagues who are trained as menopause champions, and they support our colleagues who are going through perimenopause and menopause, as well as offering support to and guidance, to managers and other colleagues. But enough about Aon. We're here to hear from all of these wonderful organisations on the call with me today. So thank you everyone for joining us. And just to mention that Aon are not part of the judging process, which I have to say I'm very glad, as I would say the judges had a very hard time in actually selecting a winner from this, because there's so many fantastic initiatives here. And that's actually one of the main reasons that we sponsored this category. We recognise as an organisation that we had lots to learn in the disability space. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from each of you. So let's get started. So first up, we have Access Earth. And so I'm very pleased to welcome Amy. You can take your
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, Orla. Amy Whelan here from Access Earth. I'm Head of Operations.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Amy. So, Amy, the judges noted that you are proudly disability led, with lived experience shaping everything from culture to innovation. So, my question for you is really in two parts. So, how does leading with lived experience change the kind of solutions that you create? And then, secondly, what impact do they have?
Yeah, thanks, Orla. Yeah, I mean, there's many. I'll share just a few. I can't, otherwise I'd take up the entire hour, I imagine. But, Access Earth is a disability-led accessibility company. So being, a disability-led team really shapes not only, I guess, why we do the work, but also how we do it. And to your question about how does it impact those solutions? Well, there's this common phrase that goes around that you want everyone to have a seat at the table. We think that the table itself really is important, and that is lived experience, and it shapes everything that we do. We know when accessibility is built in from the start and not retrofitted, the outcomes are better for everyone. It really reflects, up to date lived realities a lot further than compliance can. And because our team lives these realities on a day-to-day basis, we're able to shorten that feedback loop. We're able to catch these barriers ahead of time. We're able to create more sustainable, adaptable solutions that can grow with teams and with companies as well. Something that's often overlooked is behavior. Behavior isn't just about physical design. It's about systems and how we respect them and how we enforce them. And I think lived experience really helps us as an end-to-end accessibility company improve that and enable it to be a more effective, holistic solution for our clients and partners that we work with. Yeah.
Fantastic, Amy. That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. I know a lot of work and time and effort goes into all of these awards. So thank you for sharing that with us. And next up from Allianz, we have Natalie Kyo. Natalie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Apologies, I was just trying to get myself off
Find
mute there.
mute, I know.
Absolutely, the joys. My name is Natalie, and I work for Allianz Ireland, and I work as our DEI Wellbeing and Engagement Lead. So I would, just like to say thank you for inviting this. I think it's a really important opportunity. We spoke earlier about for us, it's about continuous learning, and to be as part of this category, it's really humbling. This is actually our fourth year as a finalist in the category from the very start. And every year we come on and every year we learn so much. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it is really a great opportunity because we're all there on the night and we all see the the nominations, but we never really find out what each company has done to to progress in this area. So it is really a brilliant opportunity to bring us all together. So so Natalie, for you, the judges praised your strong engagement and belonging scores. So when you think about inclusion on a day-to-day basis at Allianz, what's something you've learned from listening to colleagues with lived experience of disability?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really nice that the judges picked out the sense of inclusion and belonging, because that's really important to us. It means a real great deal to us, because inclusion for us, it's where everyone feels safe. So before you have disability inclusion or any other kinds of equality, people have to trust you. So that's really what's been at the core for us, building that trust. It's one of the most powerful lessons that we've learned has come from colleagues that have trusted us with their lived experience. We're not perfect by any imagination, but what we do is we try, we listen, and what we need to continue is with actionable feedback. Because if people trust us with their stories and with their lived experience, if they don't see action, well, then the trust is broken down. So over and over, when we're having these conversations with people, they're not just about policies on paper. They are trust and belonging comes in everyday moments that we found. So it's their interactions with colleagues, it's seeing representation. We've been a sponsor of the Paralympics for longer than we have been a sponsor for the Olympics. And I think that representation at that level, two of our brand ambassadors are female, and one is an Olympian and one is a Paralympian. And we had the amazing Ellen Keane previously, previously, and we have Orla Comerford now. And if you ever want to be humbled, it is sit in a room with these people, and just to show the tenacity that they have. And I think that's really important. But for us, we're very much about benchmarking ourselves internally and externally. So we've undertaken Great Place to Work, and this is where every voice matters. So we've really high engagement scores, but also participation is the key, and that's one of the key measures rather than the outputs. We have 93% of our employee population.
Wow.
Yeah, they give us their feedback. They trust us with that feedback. So that's both in the Great Place to Work and also Allianz engagement scores across 180 countries. So that 93% of employees feel that they can disclose to us, and they can give us their feedback. It means that they trust us. And those learning platforms, we ensure that it's not an annual exercise, but that it's a deliberate practice. And what we've done from them, if we had disability confidence sessions, we've set up focus groups and one-to-one conversations. And the biggest part, I think, one of the biggest changes and it's only in the last couple of years what we've moved from kind of lived experience, just listening to them, to co-creation. So I think a previous speaker spoke about how it's always best to include it when you're designing. But unfortunately, we've been in this building for 10 years, so we can't co-design. But what we can when we are putting our hybrid practices and our policies, that people are feeding into that, it is about the co-creation. We don't speak for anyone. And I think they have been the most powerful. I would say that we have learned, and then obviously turning the insight into impact. We have our annual DEI disclosure, our self-ID disclosure. And again, they want to see, it's about allyship programs from that, and inclusion through storytelling as well. So the outcome is belonging, I would say. Belonging is where someone is happy to disclose without hesitation and without fear of judgment. And I think we're building that into our policies, our practices, our work environment, but more importantly, our leadership practices, giving our managers the confidence to have these empathetic conversations. And also what we're trying to work towards is a workplace where people don't have to ask for workplace adjustments, or we do have a policy there. But what we're trying to do is saying, is this working? Try and be upfront with these accommodations, instill in them first, but sometimes it's only the unseen. And one thing I would just like to highlight before, it's also not just sometimes about the workplaces and the practices, but also people turning up and that invisible labour, that's someone with a disability or a chronic illness or long-term health condition, the extra mile that they have to go just to show up. And if we can alleviate and name those barriers and work with people to make those adjustments in advance, I think that goes as part of our our work towards inclusion and belonging, and that everyone feels seen and heard and actioned.
Absolutely, that's brilliant. And actually, just on your self-ID campaign, because we're about to launch one as well. Any advice? Because I think that we did it a few years ago, and it was difficult to get uptake for colleagues to actually complete that.
Of course.
Any experience or advice there that you would give?
Communicate honesty.
Yeah.
I think by someone sharing, so we've had senior leaders just
Mhm.
disclosed on a very public forum. When we are doing our DEI induction, I share a personal experience about mental health problems at a certain time. I think showing
Okay.
that vulnerability, but also what you're going to do with the data, because it's very private, and if you have to build the trust behind it. So what are you asking for? Why? And then they have to see something after. I would say
Yeah.
they would be just the key tips.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. Brilliant. That's great. Thank you so much, Natalie.
Thank you.
And next we have Eve. Eve is from the Central Bank of Ireland. Eve, if you'd like to
Sorry,
introduce
also
yourself.
just sorry there,
Finding
just also
finding
unmuting myself. Sorry, yes, I'm Eve Kavanagh. I'm the Disability Inclusion Partner here. I very recently moved into the role with the Central Bank of Ireland. Before that, I was the Early Careers Programme Manager, but I worked very closely with our last Disability Inclusion Partner on a lot of things. Rebecca Daly, she's still with us. Yeah.
brilliant, brilliant. And Eve, what the judges said about your submission was that they felt that the disability inclusion partner role was a really interesting idea, and it signaled priority and accountability. So, Eve, would you be able to just to talk us through how having that clear point of connection, how that changed the conversation around disability?
Yeah, so I think having the clear point of a clear point of connection with the disability inclusion partner role, it's changed conversations about disability inclusion from ad hoc and problem-led to earlier, more open and solutions-focused conversations. So, colleagues know where to go for advice, guidance and signposting, and that's normalised asking for support. It's reduced uncertainty for employees and managers, and it's created a consistent, trusted pathway into adjustments and inclusive practices as well. So the clarity is tightened, on feedback loops as well across HR, IT and facilities. So any issues raised in conversation, they translate more quickly into practical, real improvements. And then with the disability inclusion partner as a key contact as well, it's helped build stronger relationships with our external partners as well. So just to talk you through a few of those items with Vision Ireland in 2025, our transition year placement and work experience programme. It led to a successful appointment to our new financial services apprenticeship programme, which we do with NCI. And that's, I suppose that's showing the value of providing opportunity and support into employment pathways. We're currently supporting another 2 students for TUI experience in 2026, as well as hosting events such as mock interviews, employability workshops, and different types of workplace visits. We also have a key partnership with Specialists in Ireland to provide individualised neurodiversity supports, so including coaching, manager guidance and awareness events. And the disability inclusion partner would be, I suppose, the first point of contact for bringing that connection together. We also had a dyslexia awareness event in April 2025, and that focused on inclusive communication, workplace adjustments, and we had impactful stories from colleagues, including one of our senior leaders as well, and that was supplemented with a drop-in clinic with Specialist and it resulted in a number of staff members requesting supports. And then as well with our graduate program. So I would have been working with Rebecca on this, but our recruitment process will be designed to welcome diversity and just at every point ensuring candidates with disabilities are supported through the process. So the disability inclusion partners details will be included in all our internal and external job ads as an invitation to request supports and accommodations at any stage of the recruitment and onboarding process as well. Also in 2022, we launched the Count Me In campaign to encourage voluntary disclosures of disability and neurodiversity. And that just helps us better understand and support our workforce. Our last voluntary survey at the end of 2023 found a disability and neurodiversity representation rate of 3.9%. And in 2024-25, we focused on progressing the feedback, and we plan to run the survey again this year as well. So it's just there's just a number of areas, I suppose, that where just having that, I suppose the main point I'm trying to make is that having the disability inclusion partner in place is just that there's someone there and an employee knows where to go instead of, where do I start?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fantastic idea really to have that one person, because as you say, it can be, and particularly, for new people coming into an organization, and, an organization can be so big and they're like, where do I go, or what do I do, and who can I talk to and who can I trust? So, having an initiative like that is fantastic. Thank you so much, Eve. Great. Vanessa, are you okay there? Are we? You're all right? Okay. Great, thank you. Okay, next we have Caroline McGratty from ESB.
Hello. Hello, everyone. My name is Caroline McGratty, and that's my sign in, and I'm working in ESB. and then working in their quality division in ESB and the diversity and equity and inclusion team. And so I'll switch over now to the presentation.
Great, thank you so much, Caroline. So Caroline, the judges were delighted to see that at ESB, disability inclusion is clearly woven into strategy, culture and future planning. So could you talk us through the role that partnerships play, and then also the supports for the employees who have children with disabilities?
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So I suppose in ESB, our partnerships are really important to us because when we partner with an organisation, they're sharing their specialist experience, but also their lived experience. So it helps us to kind of deepen our understanding and also to actually broaden our talent pool and to make sure what we do in ESB, so whether it's recruitment or policy, is actually reflecting the real needs of people with disabilities. So I suppose just over the past year, we've got many different partners across the D&I space, but I just want to kind of call out a couple of key ones. So the first one being is AHEAD. We've worked with AHEAD for, I think, almost 18, 19 years now. And I suppose we work with them to take positive action hiring for graduates with disabilities. So every year we advertise around maybe 12, 13 roles. And these are a mixture of 9-month contracts, but also on our 2-year graduate program as well. And we're really proud that over the last 2 years, over 60% of our graduates that have come through this program have been offered further employment with ESB. And I suppose one way to kind of reach that talent pool is by attending their careers fairs every year as well, to kind of promote those opportunities, but also to promote our open roles kind of via our mainstream route. The second kind of key partner for us is As I Am. So we're an employment partner with As I Am, so participating in their communities of practice with other organisations to continue learn about autism in the workplace. We also took part in their careers fair, and that kind of gave us direct connections with autistic job seekers. We're actually rolling out autism in the workplace webinars over the next few months. So they're kind of tailored towards all employees, but also to recruitment teams and also to kind of line managers and people managers as well. In the last kind of year, we've actually started to establish new partnerships, and one of them is Together Academy. So Together Academy is a social enterprise training program for adults with Down syndrome. So we actually took on 2 students on work experience in our restaurant and in our coffee docks for 4 weeks. So we're looking forward to continuing that and doing more this year. And last year as well, we, with the Irish Deaf Society, our Accessibility Employee Resource Group, coordinated the delivery of Irish Sign Language classes. And these were delivered by the Irish Deaf Society. So it was a 15-week course and it was accredited at level 3 QQI. So we had a huge number of people expressing their interest for this, but we could only do 12. So those kind of first 12 people have come through that and they've done their 15 weeks and got their certification in that. So we do plan to kind of roll that out across other ESB locations around the country. So we have many different offices all around the country. So we want to make sure that I suppose these are kind of rolled out across the business. And then the other one is Cork Deaf Association. So I suppose I mentioned that we do have offices all around the country. One kind of key area for us is ESB Networks, their customer care centre. It's actually based in Cork. So we worked with the Cork Deaf Association to deliver deaf awareness training, and this kind of focused on how to communicate with deaf people who use ISL, how to work with interpreters. So we did 2 trainings with them. The Cork Deaf Association did one for the customer care staff, but also with our network technicians who are out in the roads, in the yellow vans. They may be dealing with customers in their houses. So kind of giving them the tips on how to communicate with deaf customers if they happen to kind of call into them. So I suppose they're kind of some of the partnerships that we've worked with. And I suppose in terms of the support for employees who have children with disabilities. So I suppose we're obviously striving towards disability inclusion for our employees, but it's really important to recognise that, colleagues may also have children with disabilities and looking at how we can support them as well. So last year we increased our parental leave entitlements beyond the statutory requirements for parents or guardians. And then we also rolled out a sensory friendly space at our head office Christmas party. That usually has about 1,000 people, just for context in terms of numbers. So we had a dedicated quiet room with kind of lights and kind of soft play toys, just so that children could have a bit of time out. So the feedback's been absolutely amazing. So we're hoping to roll that out across other locations this year as well. But I suppose one of the key things that we're really proud of in the D&I team was around our education bursary. So in ESB, we have an education bursary, and it's been around for 20 years. And this was for parents who have children with disabilities who are going to third level education. And I suppose looking at the bursary and kind of, looking at employee feedback, but also wanting to align it with, I suppose, our values in D&I and our strategy, we kind of felt we needed to update the kind of bursary to reflect, I suppose, the diverse educational journeys that people with disabilities take. Not everyone goes on to third level, and I think it's really important to recognise that. So we actually expanded the eligibility to include children who are going to primary, secondary, or tertiary education. And the bursary can be used for any education related thing. So for example, whether it's paying for fees, or whether it's assistive technology, specialist therapies, or any kind of support that enhance that child's educational journey. The feedback again from our employees has been absolutely amazing. Everyone's responded to it really well. And we've received a record number of applications. And I suppose those employees who received the bursary just were really grateful to have this. And I think there was an element of like, what's the catch? And we're going, no, this is offered to you.
It's real.
So yeah. So I know I could share way much more, but I am short on time. But I just want to acknowledge the work of our Accessibility Employee Resource Group, but also our D&I champions across the business, and to our partner organisations for their kind of collaboration on all these different initiatives. We couldn't do it without the support of all of our partners and our D&I champions. So yeah.
That is wonderful, Caroline. Thank you so much. Great initiatives there, and lots for us to think about. Okay, next we have our penultimate finalist. We have Paula Kelly from Sun Life. Paula,
Hi, good morning, everybody.
Hi.
How are we? It's just great. I'm fascinated listening to everybody share their experience and the celebration of everything that's happening across Ireland. I think it's fabulous to see. So whilst I won't be watching myself back, I will definitely rewatch the webinar just to make sure I listen and capture some tips again.
Yeah, most definitely. So Paula, the judges commented that Sun Life's neuro-inclusion journey goes far beyond policy, extending to sensory mapping and rethinking how space is experienced. So you've actually designed your workplace through a neurodivergent lens. Can you talk us through how that has reshaped the way people think about inclusion more broadly?
Yes, absolutely. So we designed our workspaces through an inclusive lens, and I think it's really transformed how we all think about inclusion. And it really shifted us from thinking about a one-size-fits-all approach to recognising that accommodating, diverse cognitive needs benefits everybody. One of the big things that we've implemented in recent years in our spaces globally are activity-based spaces, so that connection and collaboration can happen with ease when people are together. I often like to say, one of the good things that came from that COVID time is, we had the opportunity to take some time out and actually from working in our spaces to really thinking about, how when people work flexibly between home and the office, when they come to the office, we want our spaces to help them make the most of their team time together so that they can, connect, solve problems and support our people in achieving thriving careers. During that time, we did a redesign of our offices, and rather than us trying to predetermine what works best for everybody with this approach, employees can choose a space that best fits with them and how they work and what they need to do to work for the best of their ability. We recognise that people thrive in different types of environments, and we wanted to embrace that in our spaces. So our buildings are designed based on how people work, not necessarily the work that they're actually doing. So I suppose as a standard principle, we initially showed our commitment to inclusion with sit-stand desks, collaboration spaces, quiet spaces, and clearly communicating, for example, the types of noise levels you can expect in different parts of the office. So it's called our activity-based working model. And to highlight this as an example, we have a village space, which is kind of more social. People can eat and drink and people gather there, and the noise levels as people congregate tends to get higher, as opposed to working in one of our many quiet booths that we have in our library space, where the focus in the library space is more about heads down work, or, you know, where you may be on call, but you're not necessarily the person leading the call. We also introduced in the last year, what we feel is very innovative, is a sensory map which focuses on the 8 senses, and it highlights areas of potential hyper or hyposensitivities throughout the site in order to provide an employee experience that truly allows people to reach their potential by again working in an area that allows them to perform to the best. We've also introduced a sensory room into our space as well, which allows our employees to avail of a space where, you know, they feel if they need to step away from their current working environment, they have somewhere to go. Accommodations, I guess, really that we had put in initially based on inclusion have really improved spaces for everybody. So again, the quiet spaces designed for those with sensory sensitivities have helped all of us, you know, really focus on focused work. I think one of the biggest learnings for us has really helped us appreciate, and one of the panel mentioned it there, about thinking beyond visible differences. So this design had helped us understand that not all disabilities or differences are visible, and the inclusion, you know, we have to address the cognitive, the sensory and communication differences. You know, asking what do you need to be successful, as opposed to assuming we know what somebody needs. Again, the sensory map highlighted that for us as well throughout the spaces. You know, and recognising that diverse thinking styles are a strength, and the value different approaches bring to problem solving and innovation. And again, I think really rather than doing reactive accommodation, you know, the neurodivergent design allowed us to build flexibility into our systems from the start. So it was about doing more than just compliance. It was going beyond what we wanted to do to help people achieve the best. And we recognised that, you know, we weren't able to do this in isolation. So we have a fantastic inclusion and belonging committee. We have our neuro inclusion champions who, you know, we have worked with throughout this process and helped to understand and create that psychologically safe environment for people to make a disclosure, you know, and normalising conversations about what people need to really thrive within our spaces.
That sounds amazing. I think we'll all be coming into the Sun Life offices, and
all more than welcome to come for a visit to
yeah.
the Ridgewood office. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, definitely. There's no excuse for somebody not coming into the office. You've literally catered for everyone there. So that's absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. And last but very not least, we have our winner today. So from NTMA, we have Aideen Murphy. Aideen, congratulations. Massive congratulations once again.
Oh, thank you so much, Orla. Thanks a million. We're absolutely delighted, to say the least. And we actually had our town hall yesterday and had the opportunity to have our award Pride of Place centre stage, and had the opportunity to celebrate with all of our colleagues. So it's just been wonderful. So thank you to the Irish Centre for Diversity for recognising all of the amazing work that's happening in this particular space.
Fantastic. So just the judges from the comments, the comments from the judges, is your disability awareness and self-ID campaign achieve remarkable engagement by centering trust, confidentiality and employee voice. This was the standout aspect of your nomination, coupled with the fact that you shone a spotlight on individual employee experience in the nomination. So I suppose, what did you learn about creating the conditions where people feel safe to share their experience?
Yeah, well, sorry, I jumped a step there. I should introduce myself first to everybody. Aideen, as Orla has said, I'm the EDI and Wellbeing Manager here at the agency. And before I answer your question, Orla, I just want to say a couple of thanks as well, just to the colleagues across the and just to acknowledge the work of our disability advocacy team in this space, and particularly John Harrington and Siobhan Hayes. I know many of you on the call and watching will know them, and Laura Finnegan as well, our disability liaison officer, who does incredible work in this space. So yeah, what I might do to get to that answer is provide a bit of context to where I suppose the environment that the NTMA is operating in, and then talk through the different steps of this particular campaign. And it was not one individual thing that kind of creates that trust. It was many small different initiatives and moments along the way. And our campaign centered around our disability inclusion and self-identification campaign that we ran at the end of December 2024. And the NTMA is a public sector organisation, and we are led by legislative requirement, the Disability Act 2005, to have a certain percentage of our colleagues disclose of having a disability. And at the end of 2024, that figure was increasing from 5 to 6%. So it was an opportunity for us to really sit down and reflect on where we were as an agency in terms of our disability representation. And we've been working in this space for a very long time. We have a lot of different supports in place for employees. So I would say the outcome of this particular campaign is not just about this particular award or this particular entry that we submitted. It is a combination of, I suppose, years of sustained commitment to disability inclusion and creating that psychologically safe workplace, as I said, through various different steps along the way. So our first step in this process was to really assess where we were as an organisation, and to sit down, to look at our policies, to look at our processes, to look at the training that we have in place, and to re-document really and create an increased awareness or an additional awareness to our colleagues in terms of where we are. So really practically, and I know when I come on these comments, I love to hear all the details of how these things are done, so I'll get into the real practicalities of it. So we redocumented all of our accommodations and increased, I suppose, what we were providing to colleagues currently in terms of those accommodations. So we mapped out our catalogue, and we also mapped out the role of our disability liaison officer, Laura, literally a kind of a job spec almost for what she does, how to approach her, and what the process within having a conversation with her might look like. Laura also sat down and recorded a video, and that was about, creating that I know that Eve has mentioned it there, that line of connection, and so that Laura is really visible within the organisation, and that there is a face to the disability liaison officer, somebody who knows exactly who they're approaching. We also then put this content up onto a brand new intranet page. So really simple things like creating that awareness of the supports and the accommodations that are already in place. What we realised we were missing in this step was a reasonable accommodations policy. So we put that on the agenda to develop. We then moved into looking at the self-identification survey itself, and the survey outcome was 72% engagement across the organisation, with 9.4% of our colleagues letting us know that they had a disability. That was a yes/no question in line with the Disability Act. What we did around the trust and confidentiality piece there was we outsourced who was asking for the data. So we went externally to Mercer. And so the data wasn't being held internally, it was outsourced externally, just to create that additional level of confidentiality and trust. We were really clear in terms of why we were looking for the data. We did have a legislative obligation, but the comms centering around the campaign was, and I think Caroline just mentioned it there, that we move beyond compliance in the organisation, everything that we do across the space. So this was about colleagues letting us know that they are self-identifying, so that we can create a more inclusive organisation, so that we have an understanding of where we are as an organisation. This is an act of listening to you, so that we can then action on the information that you're giving us. So we were really clear about what we were doing with the data, and we created a really comprehensive FAQ around that as well. And again, it was around communication. This is where my wonderful colleagues Declan and Josh came in. They both have engaged with Laura as the DLO, and we're really happy to share their experiences on camera. So Josh, for example, excuse me, he had assistive technology and the use of dyslexia pen. So he did a really great piece on showing how the pen worked, again, just informing people of the technology that is available, and then spoke to his experiences, really positive experience of engaging with Laura, and then the outcome of that in terms of the impact that that has had on his daily working life. So the employee voice here was really, really important to show that, look, this is an option for everyone across the organisation. It really built trust in the process and took away some of the, I suppose, the blank space that you might, the wonder, or the questioning, or the fear that colleagues might have around disclosing or looking for assistance within the organisation. In terms of the communication then, around the survey, this was really key. We did a lot of in-person engagements. So I myself went around to all of our senior management meetings across the agency and providing an update on the survey. Again, just going through why we were looking for the data and what we were using the data for. And then further on, when we launched the survey on December 3rd, we did so with in collaboration with our incredible disability advocacy team. We had a presence on every floor of the building throughout the 2-week period that the survey was open. That was my colleague Letitia, who did an incredible job in this space. And again, that was just about, answering people's concerns or queries, or just reassuring people that this is why we are asking this question and looking for this data. So the in-person piece was really, really key for us. And we also used our networks of ERGs across the business, asking them to engage and support the disability advocacy team. We used our executive sponsors to, we have executive sponsors across all of our NTMA inclusion ERGs, and they were incredible support. They would, send the survey out to the teams and really encourage participation among their teams. And so a huge amount done on the actual engaging people once the survey was open. And as I said, then we had a 72% engagement rate and 9.4% of colleagues disclosing.
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah, and then the outcome of that was Laura at our DLO saw an increase in inquiries to her from colleagues. We did launch then in 2025 our reasonable accommodations policy, and that was developed in collaboration with colleagues from the disability advocacy team. And also we partnered with externals. We have many partners across this space, but for this particular campaign, it was Stephen from Ability Focus Ireland. And Stephen also came in and provided training to managers and to colleagues, and also specific training for those that might have first point of contact with colleagues who might come forward and disclose they have a disability. So the recruitment team, the people function team, our facilities team, who might be, going to people's desks, and also our ICC team, who work a lot in terms of our tech accessibility as well. So look, it was really a case of awareness, this communication, the survey, listening, and then action. And we repeated our survey there this December, and we had a 72% engagement with 9.8% of our colleagues disclosing they have a disability. So we're seeing, I suppose, that the actions that were taken in terms of last year's survey have sustained, I suppose, our engagement rate around our disclosures.
Yeah, that's amazing. Absolutely wonderful work all around. Very well deserved. And thank you very much for sharing it. I'll definitely be listening back. I think like you, Paula, trying not to listen to myself, but listening back to what everyone's saying and taking notes. And again, I do think, I suppose, being part of this today and just hearing from all of you, I really am blown away by all of the work you're doing. And I know all of these initiatives, they take time. It's, persistence and perseverance, and it's just fantastic. So thank you everyone for taking part, and thank you for everything that you're doing in this space. It's wonderful, and I know myself, I've lots of things to take away and to to get new ideas, and you never know, there might be somebody listening here and watching us that will take some of these ideas, and you might be a finalist with us here next year. So congratulations once again, everyone, and thank you all. So Andrew, I will hand back to you.
Thank you very much, Orla, and thank you for being a great host. We've got a bit more time, and I know that people's times are valuable, but there was so much shared in this. There's a few points that if everyone's okay to hang on, I'd love to go back and just touch on some points that really piqued my interest, and I think other people watching the webinar would appreciate hearing about. The first thing I'd like to say is it was great to hear the common theme about people making workplaces and workspaces accessible and the attention that's gone into that. And I know that Orla, you've been far too modest and not talking about about Aon moving into their new offices. And I know that accessibility was a huge piece of the fit out of that building. Is there anything you want to tell us about that? But you can stay modest if you want. It doesn't really matter. But
yeah, no, actually, Paula, when you were talking about your, the layout of your, we don't have the cool names like the village space and the that I really like that. We actually have kind of our quiet areas. We've got kind of little lamps on there, and so people know that that is the quiet space, and that's really kind of the focus areas. But like that, there's just that bringing people together. I think more and more, it is a challenge to bring colleagues back into the office, and we are getting resistance, that people have got used to, working from home. We do have a very flexible work arrangement, but it is making it accessible for everyone to come into the office and giving people a reason. So Paul, as you were saying there about having those collaboration spaces, having those areas where people can come together, because we can talk like this on Teams all the time, but it really is, it goes without saying that when you're together as a group, you're bouncing ideas off each other, you're making that space for all colleagues. And so, having that space and having a nice place to come in. So there's lots of colleagues, I've been with Aon for 3.5 years, and there's lots of colleagues that you just don't see. And then all of a sudden they're coming into the office because it's a nice environment to live in. Well, we sometimes feel like we're living at work, but a nice environment to be in. So definitely, making those accommodations is really important.
thank you for that. Yeah, it's great. It's great points made. I've got some questions for everybody. My first question is to Natalie, actually, and it was that point about the disclosure surveys that you did, and I believe Aideen as well. You did one, and I think the CBI. No, it was sorry. Aideen and Natalie. You mentioned your disclosure rates, and then Natalie, I just wondered, did you do your research or your surveys externally, or did you do it in-house? Because that's something that we do as part of our God, this sounds like a horrible plug, but it's not meant to be. We do it as part of our Investors in Diversity Silver process.
Yes.
But I wondered, you don't have to say whether you used us or not, but I just wanted to know the contrast, if there's a contrast between using an outside supplier and using an in-house resource.
We, as part of our pull survey, it's done through Corn Ferry at a group level. So for the self-ID and the results in terms of disclosure, we only get at a company level. We don't break it down by department or anything like that. So that's kind of key as well, and keeping it anonymous and confidential. So we use a third party for our annual self-ID, but as part of our silver accreditation, and we do smaller feedback sessions, that's done in-house as well. So it's both, but the annual survey would be externally held.
Okay, and this is a question for all of you, and you can just raise your hand or just pipe up. Trust was a common theme throughout the whole session today, and I wondered if anyone can talk some more about how steps you take to build that trust. And we've already covered the importance of listening and using the information that you're given, actively showing how it's being used. But I wondered, are there any other barriers or advice you can give for any of the barriers that you've encountered? And that's an open question to anybody, because that trust piece is one of the things that I think companies struggle with. So building. Sorry, Caroline, you go ahead. Sorry, I can see.
Yeah, just to come in there, I think that kind of hearing employee stories is so important. For example, on International Day of Persons with Disabilities last December, we had a panel discussion that was kind of delivered by our accessibility employee resource group. So we actually just focused on having a panel of employees within the business at all different levels. So right from senior manager to kind of, the team member type of role. And I suppose the panel was made up of not just people with disabilities with their own lived experience sharing their story, but also parents who have children with disabilities. And it was really well attended. It was hybrid, both online and in person. But what we found after that was that people were connecting with each other in the room, and they were going, this is the first time I've heard someone speak out about this. I didn't realize about that, for example, diabetes with a disability. And, I think those kind of employee stories and getting people to feel comfortable, I think, to share their story, because it's not easy to be vulnerable in front of your colleagues, particularly if you are in senior roles. So I think that event was really, it was so, so important for us, because like that, I've had lots of follow-up inquiries after that in my role as access officer. But similarly, colleagues are connecting with each other and linking in with the accessibility RG. So I think it's hearing people's stories, the human story.
Thank you for that. I'll come back to that because it's great. Amy, you raised your hand, so please do jump in.
I did, yeah. So I think there's a few things I could say when it comes to trust. I know there's been incredible stories shared today. I've been so impressed and listening intently to everyone sharing their work. It's been incredible. I think for us, we've seen a few things. One, when it comes to trust and listening to employees on the ground and their experiences, is to not expect someone to know what they need, right? I've been an advocate for myself in this space for a long time, and I'm able to comfortably step into that vulnerable space and meet, whatever is on the other side. But there may be someone who doesn't know their needs right now, and that may take time. So it's really on the employers and the structure of the team and the company to build something that goes beyond needing to know the particulars of an employee's needs at that time, and to know also those needs will change, right? We all, especially when it comes to invisible disabilities, chronic illnesses, there's a bit of a flex there that's needed, right? The needs that I have last year compared to this year, they're not going to be the same. And to have something that's quite adaptable, to be able to approach that. And also when it comes to trust, really what we've seen as well is, and I think everyone here spoke to it on the panel, is, they're all incredible advocates and point of contacts for their employees and their company, but to make sure that that's carried on. We've seen where there's an incredible accessibility champion or a disability champion in a company, in a team, and they've moved on, they've changed departments or companies, and that follow through is lost. So it really needs to be built in from the foundation to make sure that that trust is carried on and that it's sustained. Yeah,
That's a very, very good point. Very well made. Thank you very much for that. Paula, you had a great comment in the chat there about the need for authenticity, building that trust level and building that inclusive environment and accessible environment. Did you want to talk more about that?
I think it's just, it's definitely something we found, and I think a lot of us have mentioned it this morning, by sharing those experiences and, and just, we're all human, regardless of the position that we have within the company. So it's just really about being authentic, and particularly when we worked with As I Am to go through workplace champion training, and that was really something that surprised us, in the sense of people were so passionate about it, whether it was for somebody on their team, whether it was because a loved one had been diagnosed with a neurodiverse, just the connections that then people then made outside of that room then as well, in terms of me knowing that, my daughter has a neurodiverse condition, as does a colleague of mine. I might reach out to her now and have a cup of coffee and say, how are things going and how are you doing? Or this has happened to me, is this, and sharing those experiences. And I do just think, being authentic, sharing our own personal experiences where people feel comfortable, obviously, just means so much. And it just, that authentic approach, I think really builds the trust, because people appreciate what that person is going through, or what they have going on behind, the green screen behind me, and, the madness of what could be happening. So just, I think it's key to everything, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, the kind of circles back to, and that horrible phrase, circles back to what Caroline was saying about the value of sharing and sharing stories, you know, and that, you know, both of your comments really underline kind of the value that sharing has in educating about lived experience and human experience, and the power that has in kind of minimizing stigma. Let's be honest about it. There's often a stigma about this area, and or maybe a reluctance to tackle it because people are afraid of saying or doing the wrong things, so they just kind of sweep it under the carpet. But and also another point I'd like to make is it's great to see people moving beyond compliance. So while the legal framework is there, and some, you know, it's great that we have that kind of that backstop to drive and to prompt action. It's great to see that everybody on the call today, and I'm sure everybody in this area, is moving beyond mere compliance, and is really pushing forward. So that's a great thing to see. Another great thing to see coming through as a common theme was the power of the lived experience. And that kind of comes back to the whole, I know a phrase in this area is nothing about us without us. Excuse me. So it was great to see that really coming through in everything that everybody's doing. Eve, I've kept you quiet there, but I do have a question for you about your experience at Central Bank. It was great, you know, having a dedicated role that people can go to. And I think somebody else had that as well. I think that was
Aideen, I think, was she?
Aideen, yes.
The liaison officer.
Having that dedicated role. And I can't remember who made the point, but someone made the point of, you know, you want to create an environment where people don't have to disclose, and people, you know, everything is just not done by accident. Everything is done with intent, and having accessibility built in from the beginning is so important. But I wondered, with that liaison role, that dedicated role, how I wondered, was there any reluctance to that at the beginning? And I don't know if that's something, I think you're new in the role, so you can't really speak about it. But
do you mean for the organization putting it in place, or?
Yeah, and also from colleagues kind of wondering, why is that there? Or I imagine that at Central Bank you've done a lot of work around D&I, so people would understand why that role is needed.
No, it was definitely coming through. You had employees already there or new joiners who were disclosing maybe to their managers and not sure how to go about it. And then maybe requesting for accommodations, and then things just falling by the wayside. Like, well, who's responsible for that? Like, who's if we need this, you know, there'll be maybe a software that we would need that, and with the central bank, you know, if you're procuring certain software, or things can take time. So I think I think a lot of people saw the need for that, and that how you know, we had this focus on D&I, and that this was a really important part, you know, the employees' lived experience of joining our organization. You know, if we're getting it right at recruitment stage and saying that we do all these things, then we have to, you know, when our employees come in and live it, we have to show how to go about that. So I don't think there was a lot of reluctance. There's always going to be a reluctance of when you're trying to propose a new role, and, you know, a team is always saying, oh, we need more people on our team. There's always going to be a reluctance to that, but I think people did see the importance of this. Yeah.
Great, wonderful, thank you. Okay, so we are up to 1 minute, nearly up to time, so that just leaves, I've got many more questions, and my mind is pinging about future webinars away from the diversity inclusion webinar series. So I'm sure I'll be in touch with some of you to kind of put that in place. I'm just going to wrap up now by saying amazing work. Thank you very much to Orla again for being a wonderful host. Lots of tremendous work out there. So my thank yous go to Orla and Aon as the finalists, as the sponsor. Our thanks go to the finalists for all of the sharing that you've done, and of course to Aideen again, congratulations, our winner. Thank you, Vanessa, for your amazing interpreting. throughout this session. Thanks to Kira behind the scenes for putting this all together. And thank you for joining us, the audience, and thank you for anybody that's watching the recording. The recording will be available on our website shortly. Give us a couple of days to do some topping, tailing and editing and all the rest. Contact us through the website and register for any upcoming webinars and to view other recordings in the series. Thank you very much. We're at 10:30. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.